Okay, here to start off the next chapter, we're going to look at the steps that led to World War II occurring. A lot of this is going to find its roots back into World War I. That's why I told you to make sure you remembered the legacy of World War I, because it was going to come back to us. All right. First thing we need to look at, this kind of goes on throughout the 20s and 30s, right, is the rise of dictators. Now, a dictator is a ruler who has complete and total power, right? It's also referred to as a totalitarian ruler. All right, with the root word in there being total, they have total control over the lives of their people. All right, so three biggies here. All right, Italy, Germany, and Soviet Union, and I drew you some lines, all right, so you can see kind of the image there. All right, I want you to pay particular attention to, you can see how Italy and Germany are both in the color red, and then the Soviet Union's in the color blue. That's going to come about. We're going to look at that here in a couple slides. Right. Now, like I said, it's important to remember that the rulers of these three countries in particular are going to take advantage of conditions that are rampant in their countries, followed by World War I. And we'll look at, Germany in particular, all right, but we'll also discuss some of the other ones as well. Okay, so this is kind of what's left over after World War I occurs. Now, we know that Germany was unfairly blamed for causing World War I when, it was really just one of the lead countries in one of the alliances, right? But Austria-Hungary was destroyed, the Ottoman Empire was destroyed, so really the only country left is Germany, all right? Now, the German people, and this is a biggie here, the German people are unhappy with the Treaty of Versailles. It took land from them, it made them get rid of their military, right? So they're going to be extremely unhappy with the rest of Europe as a result of that. All right, and then the world economies are going to collapse because of the Great Depression in the United States, right? And unemployment is going to lead to unhappiness. Now, if you have a ruler, particularly Adolf Hitler, right, who comes along and takes advantage of the hatred, the hard feelings that people have, it makes it really easy for one person to come back and take tremendous power in one particular country. Now, I left you a note here. It says write this down. Just like we had the acronym MAIN for World War I, we have the acronym VENT for World War II. Now, these are the four clauses of World War II, kind of like the background. All right, the V would be Treaty of Versailles, E, economic depressions, N, nationalism or pride in your country, and then T would be totalitarianism. All right, and that is the idea that one person or the government has total control over all aspects of your life. Now, this map is showing the punishment that Germany is going to take as a result of World War I. All right, all the areas except for the ocean and the salmon, kind of brownish, reddish color down here, everything else was Germany. All right, at the end of World War I, and I circled, right, the black areas. That's land that they lose as a result of World War I. So I know it gets incredibly confusing. So if you need to hit a pause, right, but here's kind of the runaround. Okay. This area over here, Alsace and Lorraine, okay, tremendous coal deposits, ore deposits. So that had a particular strong impact on their economy. The area up here, all right, the black area. Let me see if I get my mouse. All right, the area up here, okay, that's land that's taken from Germany and it becomes Poland. Right, so when Germany rebuilds, they're going to start looking at getting that land back. But I kind of highlighted them here. 100% of their colonies they lost. Right, 80% of their fleet, 48% of their iron production. Okay, 12% of their population was taken from Germany and given to other countries. Right, but those people are still German. Now, it's important that you remember that. Okay, here are the dictators. Benito Mussolini, right, his movement was fascism, which means the government has total control, right, and also there's a militaristic element there, all right, so I drew an arrow down to him. Adolf Hitler, we know all about him. Okay, he is going to get his support. He's going to capitalize on that anger, that hatred, all right, and preach racial superiority. Joseph Stalin takes over for Lenin and becomes the communist leader in the Soviet Union, and then Hideki Tojo, right, uses the military in Japan. Now, of the four of them, the Soviet Union is the one I put in blue. They are going to fight on the Allied side. The other three are going to fight on the Axis side. So we actually fought alongside a dictator when we joined World War II. Okay, so the first thing they look at doing is getting more land. Now, Germany's going to look at getting the land it lost as a result of World War I Italy's going to look at getting more land just because it wants more land, and same thing with Japan. Now, Italy and Germany, because of their geographic locations, okay, it's very convenient for them to form an alliance. So it becomes known as the Rome-Berlin Axis. It gets shortened to just the Axis powers, and then Japan is going to join in later on. These two pictures show Adolf Hitler and Benito Mussolini. All right. Excuse me, Mussolini actually had these aspirations of bringing back the Roman Empire and turning, because Rome was a city in Italy, right, and kind of he was the second coming of maybe Julius Caesar. All right, now here are kind of the steps here. 1938, Hitler starts rebuilding the military, and he looks at taking back, right, all of the land that he lost as a result of World War I. Now, 1938, he's going to take Italy, take Austria. Now, this map kind of shows you the land acquisitions that he goes and gets back, right? And one of the things he was looking at, the red here, was the Sudetenland, all right? Now, those were people, the people in that area were German-speaking, right? They had lived in Germany. They were just had, as a result of the Treaty of Versailles, were taken off, right? So he was simply thinking, I'm just getting back land where, the pieces of Germany that we had anyway. Right, so when he set his goals out to take that, France and the Soviet Union pledged to stop him. Okay, that didn't stop him. He marched in and took it anyway. All right, he marched in and took Austria. Now we're looking at the Sudetenland. Right, now this is a biggie. This word, all right, appeasement. So please put a box around it or star it. You have to know what it means. All right, British Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain. He actually meets with Adolf Hitler. You can see the picture down here. Whoops, sorry. Picture down here, right, meeting with Adolf Hitler. Now, what Neville Chamberlain wants to do is he wants to try and get Hitler, right, to stop taking more land, because we wanted to avoid, right, having to go into another world war. Right, so the policy of appeasement is to give him what he wants now, but make him promise, or make that person promise, not to take any more land. So I found a couple political cartoons, and I bet you can't guess the author. I mean, if you look closely, you'll be able to see, right? But this is kind of showing you a good idea of appeasement. Okay, this shows Neville Chamberlain in the center, and I know it's kind of hard to read, but you have a question in your work pack. Okay, and it says the appeaser on it. Now, all of these monsters around him all have the swastika, so they stand for Germany. It says, remember, one more lollipop, and then you all go home. Right? If you give that person what they want, what's going to stop them from taking, going after more things or trying to get more? Right? And that's the idea of appeasement. So they gave in to Adolf Hitler with the idea that he's not going to want any more land after. Right? Now, that's actually not the case, all right? Once he gets the Sudetenland, he already had Austria-Hungary. He goes and gets the rest of Czechoslovakia. He goes after Poland, right? And then before he goes after Poland, he signs the Nazi-Soviet non-aggression pact with the Soviet Union, which essentially means we promise not to fight each other. So now that he has the Soviet Union, right, which is right here, okay, he can now go after Poland, which he does. He uses what's called the Blitzkrieg strategy, which I'll show you on the next page. But you can see he starts rattling off all of these countries that fall to him in a matter of weeks, sometimes even days. So we have Poland, Denmark, Norway, Belgium, and the Netherlands. Now I put a note here. Notice how he doesn't attack Great Britain. All right, he goes after all of Europe and is pretty successful in taking all of Europe, but he's not able to conquer Great Britain, and that's because Great Britain was located on an island, right, that had its own built-in defensive position. Now, this is kind of a funny picture, and I only added it because it kind of gets the idea of what Blitzkrieg is, and it also has cats, and I like cats, right? It says Blitzkrieg when you only stop for kittens. Now, Blitzkrieg actually means lightning war, the loose translation. So it's the idea of using mechanized armor or tanks, airplanes, putting troops on instead of marching troops by foot, transporting them on trains. Okay, trying to move your troops as fast as you can and overrun your enemy as quickly as you can. And Adolf Hitler was very successful doing that in the early stages of World War I. All right, now continuing with the rest, all right, Adolf Hitler turns his attention once he gets Poland, right, he has his agreement with the Soviet Union, right, he is now going to turn and try and conquer the rest of Europe. France is going to fall in a matter of weeks as well. Now, if you remember, most of World War I was fought in France, so they kind of didn't have the will to fight or the will to hold out long, right? And then June 1941, Hitler is actually going to break the non-aggression pact, and he is going to turn and invade the Soviet Union. Okay, essentially, the communists were the ideological or political enemy of the Nazis, because the communists favored government control. Everybody owned everything, right? And the Nazis kind of had that workers' belief. Right, we'll talk about that in more detail. But this actually turns out to be one of the biggest mistakes Adolf Hitler makes, is breaking that non-aggression pact and going after Germany, or going after the Soviet Union. Right, now what's the United States doing this whole time? Well, once again, we're on the other, across the Atlantic. We don't want to get involved. Just like World War I, right? You had that population was split. People wanted to get involved. Some people didn't. So we do try and maintain our neutrality. And from 1935 to 1939, okay, the government passed a series of neutrality acts, which means we are not going to get involved. But then 1941, right, we start to turn the corner a little bit, and Congress approves what's known as the Lend-Lease Act. And if you think about the word lend, it means to loan. Okay, we are now loaning, all right, resources and equipment to the Allies. All right, over $50 billion. Now look at this graph down here. You can see, all right, the vast bulk of the aid that we give is in the form of ammunition. Okay, it's from a military nature. All right, and everything else is food, repairs, production facilities, things like that. All right, now this is what we become referred to as an arsenal of democracy, meaning we had all of these dictatorships and all these totalitarian governments all around the world. Okay, we were serving as an arsenal of democracy, an arsenal being a weapons storage. Okay, we were helping all the other countries around the world fight against these totalitarian dictators. Right, now, we know all about Pearl Harbor. We talked about it on Pearl Harbor Day. But Japan, right, also seeking to expand land, was expanding all throughout the Pacific. Now, they saw enough into the future that they realized eventually the United States would be their only obstacle. So they launched the surprise attack on December 7th, 1941, killed 2,000 Americans. Now, this map is kind of really good because it does show you, see all these straight lines here? Okay, all these battleships located, they're all docked. All right, because there was no reason to feel an attack at Pearl Harbor, so it was very easy for the Japanese to come in and attack those ships. Right, 2,000 Americans are going to be killed, and as a result, right, FDR is going to ask for a declaration of war against Japan. Okay, Congress approves. We are now involved in World War II. Right, December 7th, 1941. The nickname is a date that will live in infamy. Okay, you need to know that as well. The United States is now involved in World War II. So you can see the steps. Okay, unlike World War II, okay, unlike World War I, World War II has a definitive country that is going to kind of start it, and that would be Germany. Okay, Adolf Hitler trying to get all that land back that Germany lost as a result of the Treaty of Versailles, and then it ends with Section 1 ends with the United States now getting involved. Section 2, we're going to look at how the United States prepares for war. All right. If you have any questions at any time, make sure you're writing them down on the sides. Okay, that's important. Okay, that's what we want to get back to.